Greetings to everybody here. Please to I'm afraid I'm going to have to lean in and speak a bit carefully because my voice after this tour is a little bit on edge, as you might be able to hear, and close to breaking at any moment, so bear with me. So I come from an organisation called Cage, mainly based in the UK, although we have Cage Africa, an African branch based in South Africa as well. Cage was born out of 9/11, and those images that were beamed into all of our living rooms of those men in orange suits being taken to a prison where they would face no charge and no trial, and be held, some for a decade and a half now almost, without any recourse to justice. The people that were taken to that prison were from all nationalities, young and old. The eldest person that was taken there was over 90. The youngest was a 13-year-old boy who was taken there with huge damage to his face and to his body, having been shot at close range with an American shotgun. He was recently released and was 27 years old. He'd spent more than half his lifetime in Guantanamo Bay, in one of the most horrific prisons in the world. I'm very lucky to have met people like Shaka doing this work. Shaka was held for 14 years in Guantanamo Bay. When he got out, he finally got to meet his son, who was born on the day that he was transferred into Guantanamo Bay. A 14-year-old young boy who had never seen his father. His daughter, who had been a mere toddler when he left, is now studying her university course. And these are the lives that are affected by the war on terror. And one of the things that joins up a group like Cage and the work that we do, especially the Irish, is the fact that, like so many of the best Irish campaigns, it's led by people who are survivors of the war on terror. Jerry Conlon and the survivors of the Guildford 4 case, the Birmingham 6, came out and set up campaigns over the miscarriage of justice that they experienced, and campaigned for other people as well. I saw Googling Jerry Conlon speaking on behalf of the case that you'll be speaking about. And Jerry, I had the great pleasure to meet him, was always very supportive of the Muslim cause as well. And so, like in the spirit of those campaigns that were led by the people who had themselves experienced the unimaginable levels of hypocrisy and injustice meted out by imperialist states, Cage follows in those footsteps and puts at the forefront of it survivors. I myself was held for 2.5 years under a control order, which is a form of secret court and secret justice, where I wasn't told the crime I was accused of. I was held for 6 months in a maximum security prison, for some of that in solitary confinement as well. I won't go too much into my case today because I don't think my voice will last out, and I want to talk about other cases. But I'll say one thing about why I chose to work with Cage rather than any of the other organisations when I came out. When I was being held in prison, and when I was going through that experience and that ordeal, being held in prison and not knowing why I was even there, not knowing what crime I was accused of, my solicitors, who actually some of you may know, Gareth Pearce, who worked so tirelessly on Irish cases, were not even allowed to know the case against me. As I was going through that, my mother, non-Muslim, did what anyone would do at that time. She went to the human rights organisations. And I won't name names here, but they're very well-known large organisations, and they all said, look, there's nothing we can do here. This is terrorism cases, it's not our area. And large organisations with millions of members that have millions of pounds turned their back on these cases and wanted nothing to do with it. It was only after I came out, after I was cleared, that I found out about Cage and the work that they do, and realised that they took on any case. Guilt or innocence wasn't actually the most important thing on the cases that they took. It was principles of law and principles of justice. And whether somebody's committed a crime or not, they don't deserve to be tortured. Whether somebody's committed a crime or not, they don't deserve to be held in secret trials and secret courts. And these are the principles that are worth fighting for, and these are the principles that are worth standing up for. And so this is how I came to be with Cage. I think when we look at the sorts of cases that have come through and that we've seen time and time again, we see so many echoes to the Irish cases, and that's why I'm so glad that we've got the other speakers here and hopefully that as we're all speaking about the cases, there'll be an echo that will be very clear for all to see about how the struggle is the same. So I want to start by talking about a young mother who was posting some things on Facebook in support of a group I vehemently disagree with, ISIS. And she was posting these things on Facebook, and she was arrested for doing that. At the same time that she was arrested and that she went to trial, there was another case of a British soldier who had 2 nail bombs with over 280 pieces of shrapnel inside of them. He had a list of targets, including mosques and immigration centres, and he had established links to far-right organisations such as the EDL and the BNP. He was an ex-British soldier. Both of these people were tried and convicted in the UK, and they received their sentences within a week of each other. One of them received a 6-year sentence, and the other one received a 2-year sentence. And we're going to have a little show of hands here, out of the 2 crimes, who would say having 2 nail bombs ready to go is more dangerous and more deadly than some Facebook posts, however disagreeable? Give us a show of hands. So which way round do you think these 2 sentences win? Which one got 2 years and which one got 6? By the nods in the room, I can see I almost don't even need to make the point. For having 2 nail bombs, the ex-British soldier was convicted to 2 years in prison. For posting some very disagreeable points on Facebook, a mother of 4 children got sentenced to 6 years in prison. And here we see the way in which different people are treated based on the colour of their skin or the religion that they hold. We see in other cases, sorry. I'm sorry about this. We see in other cases, such as Myers and Begg, who after coming back from Guantanamo Bay, being held there, being tortured there. I'll speak about just one instance of the many instances of torture that he had while he was, actually this specific instance happened in Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, just before he was sent to Guantanamo Bay. He was being held in a room with a hood over his head, shackled, and they were saying to him, and again, hoods and shackles, another echo to the people that were in this room with. He'd been beaten on the floor by American soldiers, kicked and punched. And they lean down to him and they say, "Do you know where your wife is?" He'd just recently been kidnapped from his home where his wife was. And he didn't know where she was. He'd just been taken and kidnapped. And he could hear a woman screaming from the cell next to him. And they say, "Do you know where your wife is? Do you think you're ever going to see her again? Do you know what we're going to do to her?" And he can hear her screaming from the cell next to his. He has no idea who's there. He's been beaten and punched and kicked. And they tell him the only way that you can stop this is if you sign this confession. He was released eventually, along with many of the other British detainees, and campaigned tirelessly for both Irish and Muslim cases. And he's maintained and always spoken about the importance of the connection between our 2 peoples in this struggle. But just a couple of years ago, he was rearrested, allegedly for providing material support to terrorists. What he'd done is he'd sent a generator to a country with 6 million refugees, Syria. That generator hadn't even reached its intended target. This was deemed to be support for terrorist organisations. At the same time that the British government had sent 10,000 generators to armed groups as part of their non-lethal aid programme to the resistance fighters in Syria. But unlike the British government, Marsden was treated very differently for his generator that he sent. And he was held, again, for 8 months awaiting trial in prison. The day before his trial was due to start, the security services released information that exonerated him, that they'd had right from the beginning, admitting that there was no case to answer. Now, it is my strong and firm belief, and it's Marsden's strong and firm belief, and Gareth Peirce's strong and firm belief, that the reason that they allowed that case to collapse the day before the trial was about to start was because of how embarrassing it would have been to the British state to have it called out on a high-profile case with somebody who's well-known around the world, who's spoken in so many countries, in every single university in the United Kingdom, that he was being tried for exactly the same thing that William Hague, our then Foreign Secretary, has done 10,000 times moreover. And so we see these cases again and again, and the echoes and the injustice of them. And it's important to remember that Cage's call is a call for justice for all people, regardless of the colour of their skin, regardless of their religion. And we're not asking for our rights here, we're demanding them. We will not lay down, we will not be silent. Our rights are owed to us, and we will not ask you for them, we will take them. Thank you very much.